Happy New Year. TNA is back with brand new episodes after taking a couple of weeks off for the holidays. So that means the TNA Impact review is back. And the last time we talked together, we talked about Final Resolution and how TNA ended the year with an epic pay-per-view with an epic TNA Plus special. Tessa Blanchard is back. Joe Hendry is the #1 contender for the TNA World Championship. We got some new matches going down at Genesis coming up in a couple of weeks, but we got a lot to talk about because we haven't talked in a minute. So let's get this underway. Welcome back to the Wrasslin for Life Network, and welcome back to another TNA Impact review. We are back because TNA is back with a new episode, so it's time to dive in to what happened on this past week's episode of TNA Impact. We kicked off with Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is the #1 contender to the TNA World Championship. He will face Nick Nemeth at Genesis, but we kicked off TNA with Joe Hendry basically saying he will win the title. He will dethrone Nick Nemeth at TNA Genesis, in which I do believe this will be his crowning moment. I do know we have to look and be watchful for Frankie Kazarian. He holds that call your shot. He can call his shot anytime, anywhere, basically to any title in TNA wrestling. But his focus, Frankie Kazarian's focus, is on the TNA World Championship. And I do believe Joe Hendry will win at Genesis, but I'm scared because it's like, if Joe Hendry wins, does Frankie Kazarian cash in? And I know the TNA faithfuls have been patient. We all have been patient. The wrestling community has been patient with this building of Joe Hendry. And I think Genesis is the time. So I'm fearful that if we wait, or if he wins the title and Frankie cashes in, there's going to be a lot of unhappy fans in TNA wrestling and professional wrestling as a whole. But we have to be watchful for Frankie Kazarian. But I do believe Genesis is the crowning moment for Joe Hendry. I do believe he wins the world title at Genesis, but we kicked it off with him. He, like I said, basically said that he's going to dethrone Nick Nemeth. Ryan Nemeth came out and basically mocked Joe Hendry, saying that he's mocking Nick Nemeth's legacy, things of this sort, that basically got a heated exchange between Joe Hendry and Ryan Nemeth. This led into the match with Ryan Nemeth and Rhino, which we can talk about that as well at this point, that it ended in disqualification. Ryan Nemeth brought in a chair and Rhino used it, so this ended in a disqualification. We still are setting up a match, though, as Rhino exits the door. Next week, Rhino will be teaming up with Joe Hendry to take on Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth. I think we're slowly moving Rhino out the picture as he has exited from TNA. He ended his relationship with TNA at the Atlanta tapings just a couple of weeks ago, where Final Resolution took place. But the opening segment was pretty good. Ryan Nemeth is really funny. Joe Hendry's trying to be this serious character as he inches towards the TNA World Championship. We got to keep an eye on the main event scene, on the TNA World Championship scene, as we get closer and closer to Genesis, and if Joe Hendry actually wins the TNA World Championship at Genesis. Tessa Blanchard, one professional wrestler that has a lot of controversy around her. Tessa Blanchard made her shocking return to TNA at Final Resolution during the Jordynne Grace Rosemary match, and she attacked Jordynne Grace, took Jordynne Grace out, and on this week's episode of TNA Impact, she said she would be in the building. But Jordynne Grace had some strong words for Tessa Blanchard if she was going to show up to TNA Impact this week. And Jordynne Grace basically said, I've ran this knockouts division. I represented TNA across other countries. I represented TNA across other companies. WWE included in 2024. She said this is her knockouts division. She represented TNA during the pandemic. She said, I have changed in the past 5 years. I am not the same Jordan Grace, but you are the same old Tessa Blanchard. Strong words by the former TNA Knockouts World Champion Jordan Grace. She said she was going to be waiting by the door all night for the arrival of Tessa Blanchard, leading up to the 8 women tag team match. She was going to be at the door waiting for Tessa Blanchard, and that's exactly what Jordan Grace did. All night during TNA Impact, she waited at the door at Center Stage Atlanta, waiting for the arrival of Tessa Blanchard. She is upset. She is furious. This is Jordan Grace's TNA. This is Jordan Grace's knockouts division, and she's not going to let anyone, including Tessa Blanchard, take that away from her. She built this knockouts division over the past couple of years. Her, Deonna Purrazzo, just to name a few there. This is Jordan Grace's knockouts division. Strong words by Jordan Grace, but this feud between Tessa Blanchard and Jordan Grace is heating up, and I know it leads to a match at Genesis. We have to be patient. We have to keep watching because it's just going to get better and better each week as we charge towards Genesis. So we have Ace Austin versus Kushida, really an X Division showcase match. Kushida is on his way out the door, so we kind of all knew this was Ace Austin's match. Ace Austin versus Kushida was a hell of a match. They delivered. Every time Ace Austin is in that ring, he really goes, and every time Kushida is in that ring, you see the best of the X Division. This was a great match all around. One match from TNA Impact you kind of need to see. It's this one. This one was excellent. Won by Ace Austin, but after he won, he grabbed the mic, talked about Chris Bay, talked about a really good moment, a really feel good moment before Chris Bay went back into surgery. And Chris Bay basically told Ace Austin that you have to go on one hell of a singles run. You have to do this. And Ace Austin wants the TNA World Championship. Everybody wants the TNA World Championship at this point. You got Ace Austin, you got Joe Hendry, you got Mike Santana. Everyone wants that TNA World Championship. So that is what Ace Austin wants. He wants the TNA World Championship, but he was interrupted by the X Division champion, the current TNA X Division champion in Moose. And Moose basically came out in a way and kind of disrespected Chris Bay, but then said that the top title, the flagship title in TNA, is not the TNA World Championship. It's the X Division Championship. That is the cornerstone of TNA wrestling. And basically he said, if you challenge for the TNA World Championship, you're not challenging for the top title. And he went on to try to disrespect Chris Bay again, and Ace Austin cut him off in a really passionate promo, talking about how he has been at the top of the X Division. He's been the cornerstone of the X Division before. He has held that X Division championship, and maybe it's time again. The heated exchange between Moose and Ace Austin was really strong. Santino came out, made the match official. Genesis, it'll be Moose versus Ace Austin for the X Division championship. This is going to be a banger match. I'm calling it now. Moose can go in the ring. Ace Austin can go in the ring. I don't believe Ace Austin will win here. Early prediction, but this match will cook. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for Genesis already. It's shaping up to be a good card, but it's going down. It is going down at Genesis. Moose defends the X Division title against Ace Austin. We can't talk about heated exchanges on TNA Impact without talking about Mike Santana and Josh Alexander. Mike Santana came out, grabbed the mic. Mike Santana is upset about what happened at Final Resolution. If you don't remember, I am here to remind you that he did not win the #1 contendership match. It was because of Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander tied Mike Santana up to the railings of some steps, and he was unable to compete, unable to finish the match because he was handcuffed, tied up. So now Mike Santana is reflecting on Final Resolution. He's also reflecting on the past couple of years of his life and his career, taking a chance, leaving TNA, going to another company, it not working out, being in rehab. He wants to become the standard of TNA wrestling. Mike Santana, since he signed with TNA, came back at Rebellion in 2024. He's been on a roll. He's taken out every member of the system at one point. He wants the TNA World Championship. And at this point, his roadblock getting to the TNA World Championship may be Josh Alexander in the Northern Armory. So his part of the promo is over. He's done. He's vented. He's put his frustrations out on the line. He put what he wants to do in TNA out there for the TNA, to the TNA fans and everything. Josh Alexander comes out and basically runs down the past couple of years of Mike Santana and basically said he just can't climb the mountain. He just can't reach the top, right? And so Josh Alexander talked about how he won the TNA World Championship from Christian at Bound for Glory, but immediately that title was taken away from him by Moose, and he didn't come out and whine and complain. He just he put his foot down and he climbed his way back up to the TNA World Championship and became the longest running TNA World Champion in history. And he basically just called Mike Santana a bum. Let's just, in so many words, he called Mike Santana a bum. But Mike Santana wasn't having it. Mike Santana said, I'm not done talking to you. You basically ruined Final Resolution for me. And I know I can beat you. I can beat the other two members of the Northern Armory, just like I beat the system. And I'm going to take you out as well. And he basically said that the only reason Josh Alexander was the standard of TNA at one point was because he was sucking up to the boss. Is that true? Was he sucking up to the boss? Was he kissing a little what there, right? So I don't know if that's true or not, but Mike Santana laid it all down on the line for Josh Alexander. This match, when it happens, I know he's going to run through all of the Northern Armory. This goes down next week on TNA. It's like a gauntlet style match. He's going to run through Northern Armory, but I still want to see that singles match. I hope that match happens before Josh Alexander steps away from TNA wrestling. I feel like that needs to happen at Genesis. I think that's another mountain that Mike Santana has to climb to get to the TNA World Championship. Give us a singles match with Mike Santana and Josh Alexander at TNA Genesis. But this was heated, and if you haven't seen it, it's out on YouTube. Watch the whole thing. Watch the whole thing between Josh Alexander and Mike Santana and how heated it got between them. This is going to be good, and I'm enjoying this feud so far. Before we head to the main event, we did hear from Nick Nemeth, and Nick Nemeth is basically rah for TNA. And I think that's great. He said he's happy to be with TNA. He's happy to represent TNA as the world champion. He respects Joe Hendry. He respects everything that Joe Hendry is going to do. And in so many words, he said he's going to basically retain the title at TNA Genesis. He was interrupted by Ryan, who said, Joe Hendry is going to stab you in the back, so you need to watch your back. Ryan hates Joe Hendry. Nick Nemeth has his issues with Joe Hendry. Do we see a Nick Nemeth heel turn before we get to Genesis? So we'll have a heel versus a face at TNA Genesis. Nick Nemeth heel, Joe Hendry face. I don't know, but this match is coming up very, very quickly. I'm excited to see it. Like I said earlier in the first part of this, that Joe Hendry should and will win the title at Genesis, but we just have to be watchful for Frankie Kazarian. We are at the main event of TNA Impact, and we had a huge 8 knockouts tag team match. Jordan Grace teamed up with the TNA Knockouts World Champion Masha Slamovich and the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champion Spitfire to take on Tasha Steelz, to take on Rosemary, and Heather and Ash by Elegance. And before this match kicked off, Jordan's team had to go get her. Because she was still waiting by the door for Tessa Blanchard. They told her, you got to go. we have to go compete in the ring. It's time for you to come and help us in this knockouts tag team match. So Jordan Grace did leave. They replaced Jordan Grace with a security guard. So we get to this match, which was excellent. The knockouts always show what they can do in the ring. The knockouts always show that they're some of the best in the world in women's wrestling. Each one of those knockouts, Rosemary, Heather and Ash, Tasha Steeles, Masha, Spitfire, Jordan Grace, all got to showcase what they can do in that ring. This was like, in my opinion, a knockout showcase match. This was grueling, hard hitting, and some of the best knockouts action I have seen in the past couple of months. Kudos to all of these women, but Jordan's team did win. Jordan's team stood tall at the end of this match, but we did get a camera cut, and the security guard was no longer there. He was taken out, obviously, by Tessa Blanchard. Tessa Blanchard attacked Jordan Grace after their victory, attacked Jordan Grace in the ring, and the other women attacked, Masha and Spitfire when Tessa showed up. Tessa and Jordan Grace fought all the way backstage to the point where they were outside of the arena, and Tessa dragged Jordan Grace out of Center Stage Atlanta. Tessa dragged her and said, "This is my knockouts division. I put the knockouts division on the map." There's a lot of heated animosity between these two women. Tessa doesn't like Jordan. Jordan doesn't like Tessa. Tessa is back to claim her top spot in the knockouts division. Jordan Grace may be potentially on the back end exiting TNA. A lot of animosity between these two. And when this match goes down at Genesis, I'm just saying, all eyes needs to be on Jordan Grace and Tessa Blanchard potentially having the best match of the night at Genesis. The match is not officially announced yet. The rumors are saying it's Genesis. I'm assuming, I'm going with the rumors as Genesis when this match takes place. But Jordan Grace and Tessa Blanchard just dislike each other. This is a feud of who is the top knockout in the division. This is a feud of who put the knockouts division on the map. Was it Jordan Grace? Was it Tessa Blanchard? Who did it? And this is why each one of them has this grueling disdain and grueling hate for one another. But that's not technically how TNA Impact ended. TNA Impact ended, which a lot of people are not talking about, but Heather and Ash by Elegance holding up the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships. That's happening at Genesis. I'm just calling it. I'm calling it right now. That match happens at Genesis. I'm excited for Heather and Ash. I want Ash to hold a title. I think this is a great way to get her into the title picture. They've been feuding with Spitfire for a couple of months now. I know it's going down. I know Heather and Ash will be taking on Spitfire very, very soon, if not at Genesis. Before I leave you guys today, I am going to quickly run down the updated Genesis card. So at Genesis, the X Division Championship will be on the line. Moose will be defending against Ace Austin. The TNA World Tag Team Championships will also be on the line in a dream match for both teams. The Hardys will be defending against the Rascals in the TNA World Championship. Finally, the TNA World Championship will be on the line. Nick Nemeth will be defending against Joe Hendry. So that is Genesis so far. I'm excited. I've said that a lot of times throughout today's episode of TNA Impact. Speaking of today's episode of TNA Impact, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in each week for the TNA Impact review. I really do appreciate it. We will be doing some live reactions to TNA coming up in a few short weeks. I'm sure it's going to be great. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for listening on any of the podcasting platforms. I will be back next week to talk more TNA Impact. I'm sure it's going to be another slobber knocker of an episode. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.